Heading into Euro 2008, the Spanish national football team were known as the perennial underachievers. It had been 44 years since their only previous success in a major international tournament, and it didn't look like this one would be any different.
They'd been on a run of, I think, a year and a half not losing since a friendly at home to Romania. But several things coalesced into what everybody loves to call a perfect storm now. The key thing was that from that point onwards, Luis Aragonés took decisions and thought certain players couldn't give him the style of passing and position and associative football that he wanted. And one of those players was Raúl, the crown prince of Spanish football, beloved at Real Madrid. And Aragonés dropped him and began to play Fernando Torres and David Villa. David Villa took the 7 jersey, but they went with the sound of their own fans' boos echoing in their ears.
So how did Spain go from the national outrage pre-tournament to not only win Euro 2008, but begin one of the most successful spells of any international football side ever?
They had just more strings to their bow that year. They were faster. They were able to tear teams apart on the counter-attack because they had Fernando Torres at an absolute peak, and he was partnered by David Villa, who at the time was one of the best finishers in the world. So there was more zip about them, and in a way that they didn't have in 2012 in Ukraine. By 2012, when that tournament rolled around, Villa had broken his leg, and Torres was a bit of a spent force after a couple of bad years at Chelsea.
Back in 2008, this Spanish football revolution may have had a little something to do with a certain Barcelona B coach and a brand of football that Luis Aragonés originally rejected.
All this pity-patty knocking the ball about. As an analyst on TV, he said, this is rubbish. We're La Furia Roja. And La Furia Roja wasn't quite Wimbledon, but it was chase down your opponents, put the ball long, get after them, harass them. We're robust. We're fiery. La Furia Roja is kind of like the Furious Reds. And he took over. And he looked at David Silva, and he looked at Xavi, and he looked at Iniesta, and one of the most obstinate, obdurate, pig-headed men in Spanish football history went, I was wrong. I'm going to change. And he ripped up his form book, ripped up his ideas, and began to play Guardiola football in this tournament as Guardiola, literally day for day, as Guardiola was taking over the first team at Camp Nou.
It clicked almost immediately for the Spaniards at Euro 2008, and despite all the uproar around Raúl's omission, it was Fernando Torres and David Villa who led the way.
Fernando Torres is renowned for being nicknamed El Nino, the kid. And David Villa, it's less well known, called El Guaje, also the kid. So the two kids were up front. And from that first moment against Russia, when Torres eschewed the chance to score himself and fed Villa, the partnership was a click.
Spain topped their group with 3 wins before dispatching of Italy on penalties in the quarter-finals and Russia once more in the semi-finals. Heading into the final against Germany, all eyes were on Fernando Torres.
For anybody who hasn't watched the Euro 2008 final, it's an absolute carnival. Germany can't get a sniff. I mean, not a sniff of the ball. It's 1-0 going on 6-0. And that's the epic moment because it's the winning goal. It's rare you see Germany beaten in a final, full stop, but beaten like that, well, just extraordinary.
So that was it. Victory at Euro 2008. Fernando Torres with the winning goal. But it's what happens next. The World Cup in 2010 rolls along and Spain dominate. Andrés Iniesta scoring the winner to beat the Dutch in extra time. And we move on to Euro 2012, where they really cemented their legacy. And this is where the Irish team faced Spain in the group stages.
In Euro 2012, they only really taught 2 teams a footballing lesson. One was us, and we were obviously the weakest team in the tournament by a distance. And the other team, funnily enough, was Italy in the final. It was as if they were teasing us with that performance against Italy. They were saying, like, look, we can play incredible football when we want to, when the mood takes us. But 90% of the time, we're going to just pass it around in endless circles and bore the pants off everyone. They had it in them to play football that was just from another galaxy, but they very rarely did. And they can say, well, we're vindicated, we won it, and we won 3 trophies in a row, so who cares? And that's valid too.
We're the Spanish side of 2008 to 2012, the greatest international football team of all time.
And then throw in the fact that during that time, La Liga's teams were winning the majority of the club tournaments. It is, without question, the single most dominant era in the entire history of football. And pound for pound, never mind the statistical records, winning trebles, winning the European Cup, winning the European Championship, winning the World Cup. It's unparalleled.